Okay, we're live.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay, little technical difficulties. I'm going to open up the Board of Education, Orland School District 135 Committee of the Whole meeting on Monday, July 13th at 6 p.m. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Berry?
Here.
Mr. Hodge? Ms. Kulak?
Here.
Mr. Merite?
Here.
Ms. Peckham Dodge?
Here.
Ms. Schreiber?
Here.
Mr. Shelby?
Here.
All right, we're going to start with citizens' remarks. Let me get them up here for I start. Can someone read my first one?
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Our first citizen remark is from Nicole Anders. No, item number 1. We now know super spreading events are likely to happen where singing, loud talking, and yelling occurs. Teachers with masks are going to need to talk loudly. Teachers will probably need microphones. Is that in the budget? How will the teacher hear little voices through masks and not be able to get close? Item 2. Is there enough in the budget to sanitize everything all day, every day, and to hire the staff to do it? Sanitizing would need to be done in excess, and that is concerning as well because it is not good for our bodies or immune systems. Number 3, the PPE is running low again at hospitals. Will each school have enough to supply teachers and staff, as well as backup masks for all the kids who are going to drop theirs in the toilet, lost it, and so on? Item 4, are we comfortable letting our children spend multiple hours per day, multiple times per week, around others that come from homes who are not taking the same precautions we expect them to? I believe the White House statistic that was floating around this weekend was 0.02% of children who return to school could die from COVID. That's about 14,000 children. Item 5. When a person in my child's class is exposed or positive, wouldn't the entire class, including the teacher, have to quarantine 14 days? Item 6. Are there enough substitute teachers? Item 7. How will symptom checks actually be effective when children constantly have colds and seasonal allergies? Many parents openly admit to giving fever reducers to their child and send them on their way to school. Is there a way to ensure this won't happen? It's now being reported that 40% of people infected can be asymptomatic. How would temperature checks be sufficient enough? Is there a plan also about tornado, fire, and active shooter drills? How will they be done while staying 6 feet apart? Nicole Anders.
Hey, Mike, I'll read yours if you like.
Sure.
All right. Kristen Hawksworth. Dear Linda and the District 135 Board, I feel compelled to share my thoughts prior to tonight's meeting. First, I want to thank you and the board for taking this role in our community. Especially right now, I know it is stressful and thankless. You have huge decisions ahead and will face much criticism no matter what happens. I'm an opinionated person, and for one of the few times in my life, I don't know what I think is best. The scientific information is changing nearly daily. There are so many factors to be considered. But I want to ask of all of you to please make the decisions for our schools and our kids based 100% on health and safety, not budget, not popularity, not political pressure or posturing. The community needs to be able to trust in your decisions, and I need to believe that myself, Centennial employee, and my child, Meadow Ridge 5th grader, are safe in your hands. Thank you, Kristen Hawksworth.
Okay, item number 3.
Sandy, I think you're next.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Give me a thumbs. Can you hear me? Yes? Oh, all right. Very good. Good evening, Superintendent Brick. I'm the mother of an incoming kindergartner at Park and would like to know if the district is going to give a robust, thorough history of African Americans' contributions to society. What's typically taught only scratches the surface, and I truly do believe all students can benefit knowing the amazing things people of color have done. Best, Tessa Jenkins.
Okay, I'm next. Jen Phillips. Dear Mr. Brick and OSD 135 board members, I wanted to express my sincere gratitude to the Department of Curriculum and all of the teachers and staff involved with the developing of the summer e-learning curriculum. It is excellent. While we don't do it every day, we try to access it 2 to 3 times a week and find the activities interesting and short enough to help refresh skills, but not to be too overwhelming. We love that content is mapped to the standards and that the program can be self-paced, with the answer keys provided for immediate feedback. Especially this year, it is a great way to ensure that students don't fall behind. If resources permit, this could be something that can be offered every summer. The activities are not graded, so I imagine the same links could be used for a few years in a row. Respectfully, Jen Phillips, OSD 135 parent.
Sorry, I was on mute. The next one is from Erin Carnegie. I do not envy the position of the district office or the board in making a decision about whether or not or how to return in the fall. It is a no-win situation. People are going to be outraged no matter the decision. Please know that many people truly understand the predicament that you are in, and most definitely support you. Linda, can you mute? Where was I at? Regardless what you decide. Many will tout that COVID doesn't impact children. I would like to remind you that due to the state's quick action in March, as the height of the pandemic was hitting, that children were spared from the potential impact of this illness. We do not know how this will impact our children. We do not know how in turn this will impact families, teachers, staff, and their families. It is a Pandora's box. My hope is that you can make the decision that you primarily consider 2 groups, the children and your teachers and staff. Make the decision as you would for your own children and their beloved teachers, administrators, and staff. Good luck, Erin Carnegie, parent of 2 OJH students, 6th, 7th grade, and Meadow Ridge, 3rd grade.
The next comment is from Nicole Brown. There's a lot of talk of upgrading the ventilation buildings using different types of filter. Well, our district will be making this enhancement. Will you require students to be tested before school begins to give you a baseline of infection before you open the doors? Thank you, Nicole Brown.
Thank you. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Next is from Avni Vora, MD. Dear Mr. Brick and District 135 Board, I'm a parent of a child in District 135 and a physician working in Orland Park. I expect you may encounter some resistance to a universal masking mandate in schools. While robust studies are still pending, I would like to provide some data and personal experience on the benefit of universal masking. A June study looked at growth rates of infection in 15 states that mandated universal masking in March and April, and found that after 21 days of the mandate, the infection rates in the states dropped by an average of 2%. And he lists the study. I'm not going to read that. Modeling shows that with near 100% face mask wearing can reduce transmission by 50%, based on another study. Rates of infection of healthcare workers decreased once appropriate PPE was available. In New York, over the course of the pandemic, despite taking care of known COVID-positive patients, the overall rates of infections in healthcare workers was lower than the general population, possibly due to early implementation of masking in hospitals. I myself have been seeing patients in the clinic for 3 months, sharing space with 20 other physicians and staff with intermittent social distancing, but universal surgical masking and frequent hand washing. There have been no healthcare worker infections and no known infections of patients as a result of the clinic visit. It would be beneficial to encourage parents to have their children wear masks at home during the summer over progressively increasing time periods, such as during screen time, so the children may adjust to mask wearing before school starts. Most children will likely adapt well and will follow leadership by example. Of note, masks with filter valves alone should be avoided because they do not filter the exhaled air from the mask wearer. Lastly, our teachers know the layout of their schools and classrooms and likely have the best practical understanding of how to social distance in the classroom setting. In addition to infectious disease experts, I hope that you consult with individual teachers for innovative ideas to keep themselves, staff, and our children safe. We know these are challenging times, and I applaud your administration, teachers, and staff for the hard work you do to care for and educate our children. It is important for our children to go back to school, and if our district maintains low positivity rates, there are plausible avenues for this to occur in a safe manner, the most essential of which is universal masking. Thank you for your time, Abney Bora, MD.
Okay, well, the next one is from, they prefer not to be identified, but it is to Mr. Brick and OSD 135 board members. I'm submitting commentary questions from the perspective of an employee and as a parent with school-age children. There's a push for 100% in-person instruction and attendance. This should come as no surprise. Everyone wants to be back in school. The fatigue of COVID-19 is very real. We all want to return to the way things were. However, we have to consider the data and the risks involved, especially when the latest CDC documentation states that schools pose the highest risk of exposure. That being said, your decisions will impact lives, livelihoods, and what is best for the students, family, employees of Orland School District 135. I have a number of questions that should be considered and answered as part of a plan to return to school. I have listed them below for your consideration. Item 1. People in the know, doctors and scientists, are continuing to discover how COVID-19 is spread. As this is a novel virus, and guidance information is constantly changing based on new research, the latest information is that COVID-19 is airborne for more than an hour and can be circulated around inside a room building. How has the OSD 135 addressed old ventilation systems? Are there high efficiency filters in place? What are the cleaning procedures? Will you provide masks for all students, employees? What happens if a child refuses to wear a mask? Are you willing to sit in a room of 20 to 25 children, potential asymptomatic COVID-19, for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes? Item 2. CDC guidelines suggest social distancing of 6 feet, and current guidance suggests that both students and staff wear masks. I see this as a logical nightmare. How will busing work? How will classrooms be socially distanced? How do you expect children to wear a mask for 5 hours a day? What about kids with special needs that cannot tolerate a mask on their face for 5 minutes, let alone 5 hours? Item 3, our biggest worry as educators is that our students will fall behind. Yes, they will and already have. However, almost every single school district is dealing with the same issue. So are kids really falling behind? We can always reteach or support areas students lack or miss. However, if we push for 100% in person and a student contracts COVID-19 and dies, they will never be able to make up that loss. What if that student passes it on to another student or teacher, and they continue to suffer with symptoms that may never go away or die? Is this something OSD 135 is willing to risk? Item 4. Another major reason for returning to school is the socialization piece. Yes, that is something to seriously consider. As an employee in the district, this is a major concern of mine. However, what does socializing look in the school if we return to 100% in person? There aren't going to be lunch table groups, no socializing in the hallways, at lockers, on the bus. Sitting next to friends, carpet time, recess, physical working together to complete a lab project. Where's the socialization going to occur? What will it actually look like? Item 5. If an employee tests positive for COVID-19, are they required to quarantine for 2 to 3 weeks? Is their sick leave covered? Item 6. What if someone who lives in the same house as an employee tests positive? Does that employee need to take 14 days off work to quarantine? Is that time off covered? Paid? Do they need to take leave? Item 7. Where are we going to find substitutes? We already have a shortage and our population of subs appear to be in a higher risk category. Item 8. What if an employee's child tests positive? Does the employee and every other student the teacher has in contact with need to quarantine? Do we get notified, and how are we notified? Or due to HIPAA, are we provided the blanket statement of you may have been in contact email? There are so many questions, unknowns, and I do not envy any of your positions as they will be criticized from every angle. I wish you luck and look forward to your answers. I prefer that my name not be used in the open forum of the meeting and appreciate your understanding of why I would prefer to remain anonymous to the general public. Lastly, I am more than happy to speak with anyone at district or on the board about my questions, concerns.
All right. I think Sandy, you have the last one.
I think there's a few more than that.
There's a few more.
There are, okay. Who's next?
Sandy has the next one.
She does. Okay. Hello.
All right, hello.
Hello.
All right. This item number 9 is from Marla Erdman. She says, good afternoon. First off, I wanted to say thank you to everyone involved in the process of trying to keep our kids in the District 135 community safe in these crazy times. While I'm confident you all have been faced with hard criticism, please know you are appreciated for your diligent efforts. I want to comment regarding if or when the kids go back this fall. I understand everyone will need to wear face coverings returning. I'm asking for you to consider 3 things: movement breaks, mask breaks, and everyone, both staff and students, doing deep breathing exercises throughout the day. I understand these are challenging times, but I feel these items are extremely important as it is proven children are more successful having movement breaks and breathing exercises help keep the lungs in a healthier state. Over time, in a normal state, we should be doing breathing exercises to keep our lungs healthy. Otherwise, our bodies will trap stale air. Breathing exercises can help rid the lungs of accumulated air, increase oxygen levels, and get the diaphragm to return to do its job of helping you breathe. Another thing to consider, if they do not have gym class and outside running or some type of cardio exertion in a non-contact manner happens, the breathing exercises will also be beneficial. It will help in the expansion of their lungs after being stagnant at a desk, wearing a covering for an extended period of time. With the wearing of a face covering, I feel it's even more important and in general just good health-wise for the body. Attached is a link from the American Lung Association and can read about the importance of breathing exercises. And she lists that link. Thank you all for all that you do in listening to my concerns, comments. Marla Erdman.
Okay, the next one is from Bayan Abunada. Hello, I am sending this email before tonight's board meeting to advocate for the children to be back in school every day. Working parents will not have the luxury to be home watching kids, and childcare can be expensive. Anything besides a full 5-day schedule does not make any sense, especially when you have places like Sky Zone opened. Kids will be in masks, and the CDC recommends that people in less than a group of 50 can wear face masks and be together. Please, please make sure there are options for the parents who want this choice and a full virtual option. We have to make sure that we are looking at percentages and not the numbers going up. Our curve has been flattened and kids deserve to be in school. Thank you. Bayan Abunada.
The next one is from Angela Bull. Good afternoon, Mr. Brick. My son, Michael Bull, will be a 7th grader at OJH this year. I have a few questions for the board meeting this evening. 1, what will determine if it's time to do e-learning 100% of the time? 2, what will happen if kids come to school sick? Where will they go? 3, what will the class size limits be in order to social distance? 4, why isn't a hybrid model possible? Isn't it easier to have less kids and maintain a cleaner room? 5, how are you really going to know if someone in the family has COVID? People aren't always forthcoming. Thank you, Angela Ball.
Okay, the last citizen remark is from Monica Quack. Good afternoon, Mr. Brick and the board. I'm writing this email because I have a few concerns about the school in the fall. My first concern is the mask requirement. I just feel that my kids should not be required to wear a mask all day long. I feel this will bring some health concerns. I would ask to give me a proof that my kid would not get sick from wearing the mask all day long and inhaling CO2 back to his system. I was looking for some studies that would give me peace of mind but this has not happened, but I could not find any. Another concern that I have is the idea of not having school 5 days a week. Every child has the right of education. Putting child, and I'm just reading exactly how it's written, putting child in front of a computer, it's not an education. Children need guidance from teachers on how to learn and feedback from them in person. Another thing is that we are parents. We don't have an option where we have to go to work. What are you think kids going to be doing at home when I have to go to work? I understand some parents might be concerned, but if they have the luxury of keeping their kids home, then they can do some of us don't have that luxury. They have to go to work. Thank you for listening. I just wanted to express my concerns. I hope you will take them into consideration. Monica Quack.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone who sent in their remarks. And now we'll move on to board member discussions, non-agenda items. Anyone have anything? Okay, I take that as a no. Then we're going to move on to review of revised board policies. First reading, the policy is 6290, homework.
Mrs. Owens, you want to review this policy?
Sure. So the policy is being presented to you this evening with some additional language that provides clarification in terms of what homework is referred to in a remote learning or an e-learning environment. So just because students are learning from home, that does not mean that those assignments are homework. So the additional language as defined by ISB has been added to our homework policy to provide that clarification.
Does anyone have any questions for Suzanne? Okay, we'll move on. All right, we're going to move on now to our administrative reports, which is our discussion of school reopening. And I know this is, a tense subject for everyone. So I'm just, let's listen to what everybody has to say. I know we're going to hear from operations. We're going to hear about food service. We're going to hear about transportation. And those are all updates from the finance committee. We're going to have those as part of this. So we get an understanding of what we're going to be doing in the buildings, what we're going to be doing in the buses, what we're going to be doing with lunches. And then, let's have everybody chime in and let's talk about it and how people feel about it. And we'll get started. John?
Okay, so we're just going to do a quick review of what food service, some updates on food service, transportation, and building and grounds. I just want everybody to keep in mind these will undoubtedly be flexible and change as we move closer to school. But this is a kind of a starting point. We've worked with our vendors, our partners, as far as what things will look like. So what I want to do is I'll share the screen here. And I'll just go over some brief things that we have from our food service provider. Some of the things that we're looking at are eliminating self-service options, increasing grab-and-go meal options, purchasing sustainable, earth-friendly disposable packaging, eliminating shared condiments, utilizing wrapped cutlery and touchless dispensaries for cutlery, encouraging cashless payments, which we have already implemented, so that won't be an issue for us. We are looking into expanding or adding, I should say, mobile ordering and contactless delivery, depending on where students are going to eat, whether it be in various areas of the school, in the classroom, but that's yet to be determined. So we're looking at various options with that. So we're hoping to at least try to get our families to possibly order a day in advance, or maybe as far as a week in advance if they plan on utilizing the food service program. Safety, having posting appropriate signage, wearing proper PPE for the food service staff. Also increasing the frequency of sanitizing workstations, sanitizing high-touch areas where transactions will possibly be made. We don't use their catering service. Classroom delivery, again, this is just an option. We hope to have various locations for food service. Our billing grounds is exploring purchasing large tents, so we can erect those tents, a couple, 2 or 3 at each school. So kids will have the opportunity to go outside. Teachers will have an opportunity to go outside and possibly have classes in these open areas if weather cooperates in these situations. Safe handling and transportation of food, packaging individually. Everything will still be freshly made on site, and their employees will follow many of the same guidelines, or all of the same guidelines we would for any COVID type related symptoms: staying home if sick, checking temperatures daily, implementing daily health checks for symptoms, designating an employee to monitor social distancing, and redesigning any kind of workflow to ensure social distancing. These are just some of the things that we're working with our vendor, Quest. I know that our director of finance also is going to be working on various things along with building and grounds and the principals to ensure the safest and best possible food service experience that we can deliver under these circumstances.
Okay. So do we want to move on to
Transportation.
transportation? Thank you.
Let me get this off the screen here. And just give me a second. Okay, let me get this here. All right, Mr. Hughes will talk to us about some of the transportation.
Good evening. I'll start off by saying we have 2 contractors involved in our student transportation. A regular education contractor is American School Bus Company, have been for many years, and our special education company is Sunrise Southwest, and they have also been under contract with the district for many years. Our safety and cleaning plan that we've been discussing with them is certainly a work in progress. There's going to be some continued conversations and work going back and forth. We have another meeting set as early as tomorrow, a Zoom session, to talk to one of the contractors tomorrow to carry these ideas forward. But here's what we have been talking about up till now. First of all is daily self-certifying. Both companies will engage in self-certifying their drivers, aides, monitors, anybody who comes in contact with the bus. And that will include ABC doing some temperature checks and a daily COVID symptom questionnaire by all employees to establish a self-certifying process before the workday begins. Students will be a process that is yet to be determined. We're hoping to, whatever self-certifying process is resolved, we'll be working for the students occupying buses. Face coverings, all occupants, including aides, drivers, and students, will be required to wear face masks all times, whether on buses, with the exception, of course, of documented medical exceptions. Enhanced cleaning. Both contractors have engaged in some extensive cleaning and disinfecting over these summer weeks to have buses ready for the first day of school. ABC has been a little more specific, talking about wiping down after each route. That means we have 3 tiers after each route to any school. The driver will spend some time pulling over to the side once the bus is empty and wiping down what they call common touch points after each route to be sure that those areas are disinfected. And the plan will also include a full disinfection at least once a day or once a week, depending on how the plan finally rolls out. Bus loading, we have some plans to load buses in the morning from front to rear. So that will be first student on, last student off. That will prevent them from having to walk by a group of students that have already on the bus, providing some distancing there. ABC will be setting up in compliance with guidelines, we will have a load capacity of under 50 in a bus. Sunrise will be able to load most of their buses from rear to forward. So students will enter at the rear of the bus and exit at the front. And in the morning, upon arrival of schools, students will exit and move towards the building and into the building in a way that will keep them physically distant from each group that got off the bus. On the bus, student movement, we have already established some rules in years now that keep students from changing seats or moving around on the bus. We'll be maintaining those rules, especially this year. Once a student is seated on the bus, they would not be allowed to change a seat or to move around. And finally, ventilation. As ventilation is important, windows and vents will be employed to keep some air moving through the vehicles, through the buses, to keep the interior of the bus well ventilated.
Okay, next up will be Building and Grounds. Mr. Rick Hansen, the Director of Building and Grounds for the district.
John, I can take over if Rick is,
right.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with his connection.
Okay.
So initially, initial measures that that we've implemented are advanced oxidation phi cells have been installed in all the rooms and all the air handlers. Anti-chromial air filters will be installed in the air handlers, which we currently use. Additional sinks for hand washing will be installed. Some in hallways, some added sinks in various locations of the building to ease the congestion in the current restrooms. Alcohol foaming hand sanitizer for every classroom, and pedestal dispensers for the entrances and the larger spaces. Face masks have been purchased and are available for the students and staff on an as needed basis. We did purchase a couple hospital grade misting machines for spraying a lot of the high touch areas. It missed on the disinfectant, gives it a finer mist to it, so it covers better than like a spray bottle and just spraying and wiping. We are continuing to evaluate classroom furniture to maximize space to accommodate for physical distancing and desk placement. We're looking at possible restructuring of some of the staff to cover the added cleaning duties that will be required. Post-uniform signage at all the buildings denoting proper hygiene and distancing practices. Signage will be posted on all the entrances. It's some spacing things in the floor when the kids are waiting to get into the restrooms or waiting in waiting areas. And we have purchased and will install some clear desk partitions for the related services, special ed services and stuff like that, where the student, like for kindergarten screening and stuff like that, where there has to be a one-on-one, and they need facial expressions. And then daily cleaning enhancements. Basically, we're going to enhance the cleaning of all the high touch areas in the building. Clean and remove the dirt more frequently. We are using an EPA approved viral pathogen product to disinfect. Bottles will be provided for disinfecting in the early childhood, kindergarten, and self-contained rooms. Disinfecting of washrooms during the day in coordination with the schedule of the student and hand washing breaks will take place, because our bathrooms are going to see a lot more usage, and they're going to need to be cleaned sporadically during the course of the day. Again, touching on disinfecting all of the high touch surfaces multiple times per day. Door handles, restroom areas, disinfecting of the desktops and tables after all of the lunches. Depending on what the lunch looks like, there will be disinfecting of the desktops and disinfecting of the desks, the tables, and floors every night. And then as far as the procedure for confirmed and suspected cases, this is kind of a work in progress because the guidelines keep changing that we get, but we will follow the CDC guidelines for cleaning and disinfecting these suspected or confirmed cases. So this is kind of I won't say a work in progress, but depending on what the guidelines mandate for us. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Ted. Anybody have any questions on any of that stuff? I'm sure there have to be some. Nothing. Okay.
Yeah, again, it's just a baseline where we're at. We'll continuously fine tune this as we get closer to the school day and be able to pass on more specific information to families once we get closer to the first day of school.
I have a question. I'm looking at the chart that you have up here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It says bottles of disinfectant provided in classrooms with high need. What about the other classrooms? Are you going to have disinfectant and things for the teachers to be able to have access to in their classrooms?
We can provide that for the teacher. We've always steered away from the kids having access to the spray bottles. So in those early childhood, kindergarten, self-contained rooms, that would be something that would be sprayed down by the paras or the teachers in that room. We can definitely look at providing that for all the classrooms. That's not a problem.
Or some kind of thing, disinfecting wipes. And another thing could you scroll it this way so I could see when you're discussing PPE equipment? So, thank you. All right. So what grade PPE equipment is this? You say face masks. Are they N95s? Are they are they sized down for little kids? Are they just one size?
We currently
can you elaborate a little more on those?
Yeah, we currently have just the disposable masks for just daily use. We ordered as of today. They're just regular disposable. N95 masks are difficult still for us to purchase. We are looking at purchasing those for our nurses, for the nurses only. And we did, as of today, find a vendor for some of the smaller child size disposable masks. Also, we have access to KN95 masks, but they are a little bit they obviously aren't as comfortable to wear. But we do have access to all of them.
KN95 is a European denotation and has the same amount of filtering as an N95 mask.
Yes, it's just the fit. The N95 mask has a certain fit to it, and you should be certified on that fit.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question because I was listening to the news on a couple different several stations, and it was talking about how we're re-entering a PPE crisis in the United States. How are we going to? Anybody have any ideas how we're going to handle that? I mean, it just was out today. I just read about it, and I happened to see it in several different news stations that PPE is not readily available. So do we have, I think we're going to have to consider what are we going to do if we run out of them? And, I mean, there's so many questions with everything that every person has said there's so many questions. I know we have these what if, but we have to talk about the what ifs, you know, and I don't know how long this is going to take, but you know, how are we going to deal with it if we can't get appropriate PPE for our staff and the children that come to school without it, you know? Just
well, as of right now, we have about 10,000 disposable masks on hand. We are supposed to be supplied, I believe, from the Rick got word from the ISC that they were going to supply us with about another 10,000 also. And currently, our vendors have plenty of supply when it comes to disinfectant, hand sanitizer, and masks. But obviously, of course, that could run thin at times.
But we would expect parents to provide their children with masks because they have to wear them on the buses anyway. So is that accurate?
Correct. Yes, this is for a kid that maybe comes without it, forgets it, loses it during the day, falls, gets dirty during the day. That's what we would be looking at supplying.
You know, John, I was looking at, because I had this printed out about the Part 3 transition guidance starting the 2021 school year. I found this very valuable, the frequently asked questions. It addresses the mask issue. Are we requiring? Yes, we are. It's the Illinois State Board of Education. Do parents have access to this?
Yeah, we can put it on our website, but yeah, we can definitely share that with them.
Because I found this way more valuable than the 63-page document that we got from the Illinois State Board of Education. This asks specific questions that a lot of our parents have been asking, and it has answers from the state, what we're supposed to do. And I need a little bit of clarification. When they talk about, we're in phase 3, correct, everybody? Phase 3?
No, we're in phase 4.
Phase 4.
We're phase 4, but they talk about, have we talked about like class size limits? Because somebody else had asked that, and that's what I'm sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place.
The original document, there is no really class size limits. I think what they do is they do talk about masking, and I was surprised that it didn't have that in it, the social distancing in there.
Well, that's what I want to ask.
And the question is,
I do know that they did not put it in there. So what is our assessment of what they mean?
we're going to social distance. Well, we haven't even talked about a plan yet. I mean, so you got.
So let's get to talk.
We get to that, right? Then we can. But
that'll be part of our discussion of our 3 options moving forward
in the regular meeting.
Right, it'll happen here in a couple minutes after we go over this.
Well, we haven't got to that point yet.
Okay, so I don't have any more questions about the cleaning stuff, with the bus stuff, and anything else?
I have a question, Mr. Hughes, about the bus. So we installed, because I know that it's a sensitive issue, especially from a cleaning perspective on the buses, there's a lot of germs. We have cameras, and do we now have cameras in all of the buses to ensure that this is being done?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
And do we have access to them being turned on and off?
No, we don't. We expect them to be on anytime the bus is running, and they are running between routes as well. They should not be on.
I thought, Mr. Hughes, they were a little bit vague in just them touching up some of the high touched areas on the bus. I'm assuming, is that like the handles when people get on the bus, out the stairs?
I would say the handrails, the tops of the seats, the areas that you would imagine on a bus that is, touched off, and those are the areas that they're going to go over. And obviously that's going to take a few minutes, so it's going to, at least in the beginning, it could potentially cause some delays, but certainly important enough to make it worthwhile.
And then there is, if I may, there is a question that the documentation that Mrs. Kulak is referencing, the Illinois State Board of Education questionnaire, which I also thought was pretty concise and pretty great. It does talk about social distancing if there's a need on the buses, and the ISB does not recommend. They're recommending that masks be worn on the bus for students that are on the bus, and that social distancing is not required. Not necessarily that I agree with that, but that's what ISB is coming back with for the buses.
And they do encourage family members that ride the same bus to sit together, and in the document that we got.
To be clear, because I know we have a large audience, it says, it asks specifically about the buses, and it was updated on June 25th. It says, is social distance required to be maintained on the school buses? No more than 50 individuals may be on the bus at one time. All individuals on a bus must wear a face covering unless they meet a face covering exception. Allow as much space as possible between each individual on a bus. It is recommended that students from the same household sit together on a bus.
Yeah, Mr. Shelby, I think what that is the guideline that was given to us. It gives local districts flexibility to see fit. I assume as any place we can social distance, we will do it as much as we can. I mean, social distancing is very important. On a bus, we really don't, there's a way to socially distance depending on capacity. I don't assume no matter what that our capacity is going to be that large. A lot of people have voiced their opinion that they're going to drive their children to school potentially. So I think we'll have adequate inside the buses. We as a district probably will push social distancing and assign seats, whatever it takes for us to get it right.
Thank you very much. The only thing that they seemed a little vague on was their definition of, social distancing, or leaving it to the discretion of the school district to decide. But the other things they're pretty adamant about. You have to do this. If this happens, you do this. If this happens, you do this. And I found that quite interesting because it was last updated just July 9th by them. So, how would we handle those types of things? And Mr. Burke, please correct me if I'm wrong. Did like 45% of our parents indicate that they would be driving their children to school? Is that what?
I thought it was a higher percentage, and I'll bring that survey up here as soon as we move right. I believe it was in the high 60%. But
yeah, I thought it was quite high. So all right, very good. Thank you. Okay, I'm done for now.
Anybody else have anything? I just wanted to ask Ted. We had talked about N95 masks for the teachers who teach the kids who may not be able to wear a mask, or self-contained classrooms, and that's still our plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Well,
Okay, John, back over. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Since you brought that up, teachers wearing masks, I know that this came up as well. A couple of teachers asked me this over the last week and a half or so. If face shields for instruction would be acceptable, and according to ISB's document here, in cases where individuals need facial visualization for instruction and communication, IDPH recommends video instruction to promote social distancing. So it doesn't seem like face shields are something that they would like to see in the classroom. That they're hoping that the teachers are wearing masks.
I agree.
That is correct.
That's what they said.
They had originally said face shields, and then they reissued their guidance later with saying face shields are not acceptable.
As you said, that document said July 9th. We
Yes.
as a bus school board have to be ready for change daily.
Of course.
And I mean, that's the whole thing. We need to, this is going to be a moving document. This is going to be changing constantly. And we just need a starting point, and we need to have an idea and give the parents and staff some kind of idea of where we are going to be at.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, John, I'll turn it back over to you.
next, I just wanted to share the survey results with our audience and our panel here. Let's see, everybody could see that hopefully. So we had 2,629 responses to our survey, which is probably one of the, if not the best survey responses we've had, and we do anticipate having definitely one more survey, if not two more, in regards as we get closer to, decisions being made. So this is just a view of actually what grade level parents responded. So it's pretty even across the board.
Dr. Just for 4 seconds, if I may, just for the audience, this is about 86% of our district, correct, that responded to the survey?
If it's based on a number of households, so we have about 3,200 families. So if we're assuming that one household filled out a survey, there may have been multiple parents possibly filling out surveys, but we weren't at that point where we could restrict it. So it is based on that. It is over 80%. Correct. It would be a number of people that responded.
Okay, before you go on, may I make a comment, please?
Sure.
Recently, as a high school parent, we received a all-encompassing survey that was I had discussed with Linda, and I felt after completing it as a high school parent, I felt like I got everything in that I wanted to get in. And have you seen the document, Mr. Brick? And is that the type of information that we're going forward, getting more specific things like we're going to contain there?
I did have a chance to briefly view it. I will say that, depending on where we go from here after this meeting, I think that's going to dictate our next round of questions.
John, I agree with you. I think as we get closer to the start date, the questions need to be more questions, more specific. I think this first round of questions was just to give us a general idea of, how many parents are interested, where do they stand, what are their opinions initially. So I think this was a good first survey.
Yeah, I think it's a good first survey, but Sandy, the document from 230 pretty much addresses a lot of that that you're talking about. So it's more specific.
Okay, our next question, it was just based on the comfort level of students or families sending their students with wearing face coverings. So you can see that 67.4% were comfortable sending their child wearing. At this point, a face shield was an option when we sent out this survey. The face shield is not an option anymore, and 32.6% of families were not comfortable sending their child to school. So if we kind of extrapolate that out to our, and this, say 30% of our kids don't come to school, I mean, that could be roughly 1,600 kids that decide not to come to school if they were required to wear a face mask. Next one here dealt with transportation. As far as we just basically asked parents if they had the ability to drive their child to school, and we have 56.8% said that they could do that, while 43.2% still would require transportation on the bus. And we have probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hughes, I mean, we probably route 4,200 kids on the bus, if I'm not mistaken, every year, 4,200 kids. So this would, if this holds true, there would be less students on each bus. So that one of our survey questions was going to focus on, are you going to have your student on the bus? And if, we'd want them to mark their real answer, and they would always have the opportunity to change their mind. So if they mark no for the first month and they just couldn't, it just didn't work out well, they could always add the student to the bus. This wouldn't be a binding type decision when we get down to that. We just wanted to be able to get the number of students at a comfortable level and route correctly, rather than just route every student who's eligible, because that's when we start putting on, 50, 60 kids on a bus. Hopefully we'll get a pretty accurate number moving forward. Okay, this question basically gave the parents a choice for 100% in person, 100% e-learning, and a blended option. Just to quickly explain, I think the first two are self-explanatory. The blended option, and we didn't explain this in the survey, but I just want everybody to be clear on what a blended option looks like as far as our district is concerned. So a blended option would be a teacher who, let's just say, has 26 students in the classroom. So they would have an A day and a B day. 13 kids would show up one day, and 13 kids would show up the next day. So the students who were there on the first day, the 13 kids, they would get assignments. It would be a self-directed, self-independent study, basically at home for the next day while the other half of the class was there. So the teacher would be in school every day. It's just the students, one half of the students would be there one day and the other half would be there on the next day. And then we would alternate Fridays. So that's what a blended option looks like. There would not, when the student is at home during the blended option, there would not be any teacher assistance at that time. It would be an independent study, independent learning atmosphere in a blended learning environment. So I just wanted everybody to kind of understand what that means. The teacher doesn't travel with those 13 kids throughout the whole time. They would have responsibility for the entire 26 kids, just splitting it up every other day. Just wanted to make that clear because I think there's different interpretations on what a blended day would look like.
There's a lot of blended options. One of the blended options that a lot of districts are kicking around is going to school at 12 o'clock and then having remote from like 1 to 3, once they get home. So, I mean, our blended option, I agree 100% with what your interpretation of it is. It's the easiest one to probably carry off, but it's still going to be very difficult on people being home with their children, etc.
Right, and one of the, and this is the survey question about our families to accommodate social distancing. Would they be able to accommodate a blended option? So almost 69% of the families that responded felt that they could handle a blended option, while 31% felt like that would not be an option for them. It would be or a difficult option for them. And I'll share our staff survey. So our staff survey, almost 80% of staff felt like they were comfortable coming back to work. Again, this closed a couple weeks ago, I believe, a couple 2-3 weeks ago. So things could have changed at this point. Obviously there's the other 20% that either have potentially a medical condition or aren't comfortable coming to school. So that's a pretty good portion of our staff, and this included certified and support altogether. So if we have roughly 20% of our staff that are concerned, I mean, we're looking at 150 staff members that are concerned of returning to school. And as far as what option they would be comfortable with, 54.5%, they felt they were comfortable with in-person. 100%, or I should say 12.7%, were comfortable with the remote option, and then the blended option was 32.8%. Thought that was the best option for them. So that was the survey. That in a nutshell. Obviously, our next one will be more targeted once we get to that point, and if we get to that point after this meeting or potentially another meeting.
Any questions from anyone? Okay.
Right. I have one question. So regarding the transportation one, how many students would, if indeed all those people do drive their children to school, how many would be left for the bus company? Would that be about, you said about 4,000 normally do it, so?
4,000 are routed. It's just that everyone who's eligible is generally routed, and not everybody even that's routed on the bus rides the bus. They just have that option if it's needed. But if the survey holds true, there could be probably half that routed on the bus, where we wouldn't see a situation where there'd be 50 or maybe even 40 or less, even 30 kids on a bus. Because we run roughly 89 buses, 89, 90 buses. ABC runs for our general education. So, if obviously the majority of our parents are driving students, we would have a lot more space on the buses. That would definitely occur.
I mean, just quick math to help you, Sandy, and for all listening. If we got about 4,200 students, and let's say we're running 90 buses, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hughes, my numbers are off, but that leaves, based on the survey, of 57% of people driving their children to school, it leaves approximately 20 children on the bus. That's what the math shows. So if that's an indicator, it doesn't even seem like one child would be sitting, each child would be sitting alone with the leftover seats per seat.
Depending on route, yeah.
It's very possible. It will occur definitely on some routes. It all just depends on areas as well, but that's currently happening anyway in some of our buses, where there are kids less than 20 on a bus that actually ride it. So, yeah, I think if everything worked out, that would be an ideal situation for us.
If they were evenly spaced, distributed over the population of buses. So depends on the route. That's the big thing.
And Mr. Hughes worked with ABC, and I'm sure they will try to do their best and try to spread that out as best we could.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, John, you can take it now.
Okay, so I am going to. These are the three options generally being discussed. Let me see if I get this on the screen. Here. In school districts. So I'm going to have our Dr. Zeter, Dr. Schneider, and Mrs. Nichols kind of take one at a time here through this. I will say that we categorize these based on risk, according to the CDC, being that full remote instruction is the lowest risk possible for us. The blended option would be more risk, and the full in-person would obviously be the highest risk because we would have most kids in school. So I will turn it over to the teaching and learning department from here.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll start with the first one. While people may seemingly know what remote learning looked like from the spring, we do have some significant differences from the spring till now. Part of our challenges, and we heard this from parents and from staff, was the constraints put to us by the state. Fortunately, those constraints are not there, so we can create a learning environment that is most like school, but in a remote learning environment. So first of all, it would be a 6-hour student school day, so it would be a regular time. They would have a set schedule. They would be following, for example, the junior high. If they had 49-minute classes, they would be having 49-minute classes as well, just remotely. They would be having a set schedule from the EC to 5 as well. We will also be expecting that all teachers have some live instruction. Now, that may be in addition to recorded videos of independent practice, that they're working on things, small group, whole group, checking in and out, but there will be live Zoom instruction, and the Department of Instructional Technology has made sure that we have Zoom protocol and expectations so students know what their behavior is to be live. There will be grades assigned for assignments and assessments. That was one of the biggest challenges that we heard in the spring. We had heard students saying, I don't have to do any work past March 13th, and they still had the grades that were originally assigned to them. So those grades will be issued, and with having that new policy, when we added the definition of remote learning, that helps us with that. We will also have consistent attendance protocols. And then the big thing is we will have a consistent curricular sequence district-wide. So for example, I'll use math. We may have had a teacher in the past who would do geometry on Fridays or sprinkle it throughout the year. All teachers in all curriculum areas will have the same scope and sequence. So if we had students go in and out of remote learning, they would be working on the same concepts. In the past, in language arts, someone might have started with a fiction unit, another teacher might have started with a nonfiction unit. They will all work on the same scope and sequence. And Dr. Snyder and Mrs. Nichols have been working with the curricular committees to make sure that the scope and sequence is consistent.
So you're going to create a timetable along with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone have any concerns or questions about remote learning? 100%.
I do.
Okay.
I have a question that I get questions before about this. Will parents that will be at home with the remote learners have access to that curriculum?
If they are registered in Orland 135, they will. Similar to how we have that posted now, it would be posted. Depending upon the enrollment, we may have a first grade teacher at Centennial be a remote learning teacher, or we may have a first grade teacher be the district remote learning teacher. But yes, they will have access to all of those curricular needs that they have. And we would also ensure that if they had tangibles, that there would be a pickup time for them to get all of the supplies and materials they would need at home for the school year. And then we
would have availability to the daily, I'll call it lesson plan.
Yes. Because the teachers will be posting that through Google Classroom or Seesaw. So you can even look right now, Mr. Merite, we've gotten a lot of positives. We have our summer e-learning posted. And people, as we heard from Mrs. Phillips when she spoke during public comments, people are utilizing those right now. So it'll be in a similar fashion.
When it current, there's a big difference between homeschooling and remote, being part of district remote learning. Could you just briefly hit up on that for the parents that might be viewing us to know exactly what the difference is if you decide to homeschool as opposed to only do the remote learning, what that entails?
Sure. If you are homeschooling your child, you are choosing to exit your child from Orland 135. Your child is not an Orland 135 student. That is solely on you. And we have people in this community who do that right now. If you are going to go through remote learning, you are going through the registration process, residency process, like you would do normally, but you'll be doing it remotely.
Great. Thank you. That explains it.
I'm going to turn over the next one to Dr. Snyder.
Wait, I have a question.
Sure, I do too.
We want to make sure that the people who choose, if that option is open, that they won't be abandoned or left adrift. They're going to get as much support as possible from the district in educating their children.
Absolutely, and they will be assigned a classroom teacher. They will, we're thinking making a commitment for an extended period of time, because having students go in and out from remote learning to on-site will be very chaotic for both the student and the staff. So just like they'd be assigned a first grade teacher at Centennial, they would be assigned a first grade remote learning teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one question too?
Sure.
Could you tell me how e-learning is going to be different this year than it was last year? Because and John, that might be a question once it's clarified, that these people who are hesitant to do e-learning, because last year seemed like such a disaster. I will say I don't feel like my son really benefited much from it, and I know it was last minute and blah blah blah. But if you could tell us like how it's going to be different than last year, and maybe give those people who are kind of on the fence clarification on what's the difference.
Sure. One of the biggest problems we had with the constraints were saying no harm, no foul. So basically, if a student after March 13th chose to do little to nothing, we didn't have really any control or pushback. We had junior high parents who would call and say, my junior high student's not doing anything. My child said he's going to graduate. That was accurate. We don't have those right now. So as we said with the homework policy, assignments will be graded. They will also have, what's different this time is we are mandating the daily live instruction. And we've worked really hard with the Department of Instructional Technology to make sure all of our professional development this summer was getting all of our teachers, even those who were skilled, improving their skills as well. There were so many things like for Seesaw, for example, there are a lot of people who are using Seesaw and it was just posting of pictures, posting of activities. Now they're realizing all the intricacies that they could do with Seesaw to give that feedback and really work on new instruction. So when e-learning started, we were not working on new instruction. This is all tied to the standards. They will be following the standards just as that they would as if they were in the classroom. So they will have a daily schedule, and it is a 6-hour school day. So that was another constraint that we had on us in the spring, where we only had several hours. Now we're not saying necessarily that will be on the computer the whole time. They will have to start the class, give a whole group lesson, go over things. They might put them into breakout sessions. So if you've got a class of 20, you could have multiple students in different breakout sessions, which the teacher has control over that and bringing the students back to the subject at hand. So much what we heard, and we agree with you that we did hear some comments with that about the rigor and the challenging instruction that will be taking place remotely.
Dr. Zeter, if I may, Tara, is that your question answered?
Yes, thanks.
Dr. Zeter, if I may, it seems like then the accountability is going to be significantly greater, especially when I look under your points for consideration. That basically every class that the student, first of all, I want to thank Teaching and Learning for working very, very hard on this, you and Dr. Snyder and Jen and the whole crew. But at the start of that class, if my son Adam's in, starting at 9 o'clock, he's going to have kind of a structure where he may start, which is what you alluded to a few minutes ago, and then kind of wrap up at 9:50 or whenever that class ends, correct? So parents can be expecting a normal routine and a constant throughout that day, correct?
Yes, correct.
Will they have a lunch?
Yes. We will try to mimic the normal day as much as possible, and we can give more specifics with that at a later time. We've been working with our remote learning committee, and each of us, Dr. Snyder, Mrs. Nichols, and I, along with Ms. Carstensen, Mr. Bahula, we have had 20 teachers, and we break off, we meet every week, and they have created the learning plans that are superb and very impressive, and they've talked through the different challenges at each level. I have been sitting in on the junior high one, and like you said, Mr. Shelby, it's going to mimic a regular day, and they will have 49-minute class periods. We talked about that. It was really hard to say we would have some subjects some days, some not. It's going to mirror a regular day.
Good, very good.
Question for Mr. Bahula. I know he's off camera. It's more of a technical question. Maybe you understand this, Ms. Dieter. How do you know if my child just didn't log off for an hour?
I'm going to turn that off to Mr. Bahula while I plug in my computer and move locations.
Okay.
You mean during a Zoom meeting?
Yeah. So yeah, during the remote, how do you know I just didn't take off second period?
Well, I think there's also going to be the expectation that there's going to be work to be done as well, and so we can run a report for each Zoom meeting and who participated, and
that's what I was asking.
But I also believe that the activities that teachers are going to be creating, it's not going to be just a 40-minute lecture through Zoom. That's not what the teachers we're working with are planning on. They would present an idea, give some direction, and then the students would have to check in with the work that they're doing. So it is interactive. It's not just tuning into a like a recorded video of that nature.
The other thing, our kids are more skilled than I am, at least on the computer. I heard a story, hopefully not in 135, where a kid posted a picture and it was a still picture and no one knew that the kid really wasn't there. We kid around and say, okay, raise your hand, show me you're here. If we're not seeing a moving child, we're going to be dealing with it as we would as a child not staying on task in the classroom. So that's why when we said the Zoom protocol and expectations, those are teaching children school behavior. And the teachers, we've seen examples where teachers start that, Mr. Bahula's department worked on that, and they start every lesson with, just like we do in meetings, these are the meeting norms, these are the Zoom norms as well.
Also, if I could add, Dr. Zeter, all of our summer professional development has had remote learning aspects to it. So our teachers, all of the summer professional development that they participated in was all remote through Zoom, but each provider offered different ways that they could be using the knowledge that they're getting from the professional development in a remote learning atmosphere for their students. So one of the things that was a big part of pretty much every single professional development this summer was showing the teachers how to do breakout rooms so that they could do small group instruction while still having the whole class. And our summer PD has been very highly attended, and great reviews from the teachers.
My last question is about special services for children that are at on the remote learning plan if they choose to go that way. Obviously, the minutes have to be met.
Correct. And there may also be, conversely, that even if we go 5 days a week, there may be students with such significant needs that they still have to come on property.
What if the parent says that's not possible?
Then we will work through, just as we have been doing. They've been doing a lot of teletherapy and other sessions to provide live instruction. So just as the IEP implies individualized education plan, we'd be creating that for each student should the family choose to do remote learning.
Great, thank you.
I have one more question. Sorry, then I'm done. Is it possible, you're talking about this, the remote learning plan and then the blended plan. And is it possible to make you're talking about the blended, and when it's a remote learning, the students are independently completing their programs. Is it possible to just have the kids who are not in class that day or that week or whatever, having live instruction from the teachers who are also teaching the kids who are in school?
Mrs. Schreiber, if you could hold that thought, and I'll have Dr. Snyder explain blended instruction, and then we'll come back to it because that may answer some questions, and then we'll talk about some of the challenges. Each of these plans have points of consideration for each of them. So I'll have Dr. Snyder explain that, and we'll come back to your question.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Zeter. I'll go ahead with the blended model. As the graphic is showing, so a blended model, as we've discussed it thus far, will consist of A and B cohorts. So if your student was in group A, that your student would attend school on Monday and Wednesday. And if your student was in group B, your student would attend school on Tuesday and Thursday. The Fridays would then be alternating Fridays. So if your student was in group A or group B, they would attend school every other Friday. So within a 2-week span, they're getting a 5-week or a 5-day experience. So the way that would look on those days where students are in school. So if your student is in group A and it's Monday, your student would be getting a regular instruction day throughout the day. So teachers would be working with students who are there in person throughout the course of that day. Part of that day when students are on site then would also include getting them set up for the day that they're off site or the day that they are not there. So what that means is they would be going through lessons and activities for that day that they're not there, so that when the student isn't there, they're going home prepared for that day that they are not on site, and they would have that work to complete throughout the course of that day. It wouldn't include, now I'm going to put a little asterisk next to what I'm about to say. I'll qualify it and then explain it. For students on their off-site day, their day would not include live instruction
However, there are some students who would receive live instruction if needed due to interventions and related services. So, so when students are off-site, there are some students who would continue to receive those related services. We talked about this idea of, and Ms. Schreiber, I'm going to try to answer your question. Help me along if I'm answering it or not. I think it sounds like what you were describing in your question was related to students being able to see in-class instruction when they are not at school. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so thank you for that question. We have talked through. It gets tricky when we're talking about having students being remote and still seeing that in-class instruction because of so many confidential reasons. So the challenges really lie around different behaviors and things and different situations that might occur in class, and us really wanting to be sure that we're honoring the privacy and integrity of instruction that happens within the classroom without so many of those things being able to be broadcast over you know, a much larger potential audience. So that is where the challenge lies in terms of having live instruction in a classroom be broadcast, you know, over the internet or put online for students to see, you know, students and potentially a much larger audience to see while at home.
If I may add to the other challenge, as Mr. Brick said, if it's a class of 26 and 13 are live on a day, on group A day, that teacher is live all day. So the next day when those students are at home, the teacher is live with group B all day and isn't able to do both.
You're going to get the same instruction.
Right.
Yeah.
Twice.
So does that mean they're only getting half of the instruction that they would if they were in school? If she's teaching the same thing on Monday that she is on Tuesday, essentially you're getting 2.5 days of instruction from a teacher. Is that right, or?
I think you're right.
Yeah, it would definitely limit the ability to cover academic content. Yes.
Yes, it does limit it.
I had that.
And you're referring to it as Tara. You're referred to more like, why can't the class be streamed to the people, right? It's more like streaming.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, I did part of my MBA live streaming.
Yeah,
you know.
but with teachers, and I'll speak from my experience as a union person. There's a lot of, as Dr. Snyder says, there's a lot of privacy issues, a lot of things now with evaluation, a lot of lawsuits that go about putting out stuff like that. So I think that's what Dr. Snyder's trying to say about the privacy issues. There are many things out there.
I think parents are more concerned about kids' education than their
privacy.
Yeah, but
now we're talking about the staff. I mean, it's really for their protection as far as streaming stuff like that. So I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think that's.
I know at the junior high meeting, it was an interesting, healthy conversation between our language arts teachers and our math teachers. Our math teachers, being with the numbers, they were very linear. How can I get through the content? The language arts teachers said, then how do we look at what are the salient, most significant points that we have to teach, and how do we teach in a workshop model so that we can be presenting information, and then on that offsite day, the students are getting the chance to apply it, and then they're coming back and the teachers are saying they got it, or they still need reteaching, which is what they should be doing, whether they're in a class live on site or doing it remotely. So they have had some great conversations with that and how they would organize their instruction to still cover the academic content.
Lynn, I have a question.
Yes.
What about the 5-hour clock mandate for the remote days? If there's no interaction with teachers, then how does that get satisfied?
It still does. We were on 2 different webinars today with the ISC, and they said that it is a 5-hour instructional day. But because you're focusing it that way with the independent, it still counts as a day of instruction.
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Nichols, did you, if no one else has any questions, you could explain what would be different with full person instruction?
thank you.
I'm sorry, I have a question. I had to unmute myself. Okay. They changed the Illinois State Board of Education changed the schools to consider that a 5-hour day is an acceptable span of time for a child. Do they mean time it exactly 5 hours, or is it 5 hours of instructional time? That's what I have a question about.
5 hours of instructional time, so that goes back to Mr. Merite. Would we have lunch break in there? Would we have a movement break? We would still put those into a remote learning day.
So if a child was, I'm talking about in school. If a child was in school from 7 to 12, would that be considered a 5-hour day or no? Even with everything else that's in there, breaks and all that? No or yes?
So
here's where I'm leaning towards.
The 5 hours. The 5 hours is not direct instruction. It's combined work as well as instruction. So it's not like the teacher's going to be there for 5 hours in front of the screen. The 5 clock hour minimum requirement encompasses classwork as well during those 5 hours. As far as your example of 7 to 12, I mean, it's potentially doable. You can send kids home and say, you're having your lunchtime afternoon, or there's other things you can do to offset that extra hour. You got to go home and do this, that, or the other, some assignment for an hour. So even if it was 4 hours, you can combine it to say, okay, the last hour you're going to be at home and you're going to be working on A, B, C, D. So there's a wide variety of things we can do with that if the board's interested.
All right, thank you for your answer.
Okay, we ready to move on to the full in-person option?
Thank you. So the full in-person option is obviously all of the students and staff that are would be there 5 days a week. They would receive full instruction in person. We would have to make sure that we are following the ISB guidelines. So our students and staff would be required to wear face masks. As we discussed earlier, the face shields are no longer being considered as an appropriate covering. So the students and staff and everybody that enters the building would need to wear a face mask. We would limit the number of students that were interacting. So our students would be staying in their classroom as much as possible when having physical distancing as much as possible. We would have additional time scheduled in for hand washing, sanitizing throughout the day, and additional breaks for our students to, if weather permits, to be able to go outside and get a break. All of those extra things do take away from some of the curricular time that our students have, which is why we'll be working on having that curricular scope and sequence, because that will help us ensure that even though we're losing some of those minutes, that we're getting all of the instruction in. Our students in the K-5 would stay in their homeroom as much of the day as possible. So the art teacher, the music teacher, and the media specialist would be going to the classroom to provide instruction and not having the students be the ones that move. So this would limit a lot of that high touch area and not having our students mix into the same classrooms, touching the same materials. We would also be limiting students sharing materials. So we would ask all the students to have their own materials, their own art boxes and things like that, so that those weren't being shared. If materials do have to be shared, there will be a cleaning process for that. We are looking at increasing and have a plan to be increasing our social emotional learning, which would be frequently every day. We would increase having social emotional learning and touching on those areas with our students as well. The nurses are currently working on having protocols put in place for visiting the health office, and then also for if a student or staff member were to become sick, what those protocols would be. And those are coming from our nurses who are working through ISB and through the different guidelines to make sure that they're getting all of the correct information. As Ted talked about, there is going to be enhanced cleaning during the school day and after the school is out. For junior high, the junior high students, they're going to be having a staggered schedule. So our junior high principals have been working on their schedules so that the students aren't all in the hallways at the same time. And depending on the building and the size of the hallway and the layout of the building, many of the buildings will also have one-way hallways or traffic being directed in a certain direction, so that limiting the amount of movement throughout the hallways. The students in the junior high also will not be using the locker room, and they won't be using their lockers. So students will be able to carry their backpacks and have all of their materials with them, which again limits the number of students that are gathering in the hallways. Also with PE, the K-5 students, as much as possible, we are going to have them going to the gym. Our gyms are all large enough that the students are able to space out and at least get some moderate activity, get out of their classroom and get some movement, to just allow for them, at that age to be able to move around as much as possible. I think I got everything on there. Are there any questions about that?
I have a question.
Sure.
You talked about face masks being required. My understanding, reading everything, is that face masks would also be required in the hybrid model when they're in school.
Yes. So everything, all of the safety precautions that I talked about for full in-person, those would be in place if we were doing the blended or hybrid model. So even if you had only half of your students coming to school at one time, all of those safety precautions would still be in place.
Thank you.
And for the curricular scope and sequence, that is all going to be done no matter what model we're following, so that if we are in a full in-person instructional model, if for some reason we do need to then later on move to a full remote, all of the teachers would be able to be on the same page and be in the same place for their curriculum. Also for students that are maybe choosing to do the at home, if it's an option given to them to do remote learning at home, when or if they were to come back to school, they would be, in about the same place as the students who are in person.
Okay. You guys have anything else?
No, if we're done with all three, my only question is this. If there are choices, if we go with choices instead of one model, will people be able to go to, let's say there are choices, and I chose to go into the at home, the remote model. Would I then a week later be able to say, you know what, I'd rather have my child in the full in-person experience? Is that possible?
Oh, Mr. Merite, we'd really be hoping for a trimester commitment is what we would ideally hope for. We know that there may be extenuating circumstances in families, so we're not saying that that's not possible, but I think for continuity of instruction and preventing from that going from teacher to teacher, different teachers, ideally we would hope for a trimester commitment, but obviously we would review and look at everyone's request when it comes to their specific situation.
Was there any discussion with K-5 with the full in-person instruction with K-5 learners with the teacher moving as opposed to the students moving?
So that in the K-5,
in the junior high model.
Oh.
Yeah.
In K-5, you have your teacher. I'm sorry, in the junior high model.
Junior high, I'm sorry, Mrs. Nichols. Junior high faces more challenges, Mr. Merite. We talked about that with the principals. They are looking at it. We have so many singleton classes. So if someone needs to go for reading intervention or to Spanish class, how to keep all the students in the same class throughout the day. We are looking at it, but it is much more challenging. And when we meet with other school districts, they're having the same challenges as well for the junior high level. And that's why we were trying to have the staggered schedules. So we are limiting contact with people that only the 6th graders would be in the hallway at one time, and then the 7th graders, and then the 8th.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for it. What I'm saying is that you'd also have a question of who's supervising while the teacher's on the move. I mean, But I've heard, I'm just bringing up things that have been said, and I know some school districts are going toward teacher movement as opposed to child movement. And there are a lot of problems with that also, and you're right.
Yeah, our junior high principals, felt that with their schedules, they may be able to do that a little bit, where if it was the same group of students that maybe had English and social studies back to back, that the teachers could switch. But for the most part, they felt like with staggering the schedule and having less kids in the hallway, having the one-way hallways, that would work better at the junior highs.
Okay, thank you.
And then they would also be looking at spaces for lunch. Remember that we have the 50 limit in one space. So they were looking at utilizing other places, because if everyone came back, they would need 4 to 5 places for students to eat lunch.
So there's nothing to prevent us from, I'm looking and read through the information. We described a full remote instruction, a blended instruction, or a full in-person instruction. So there isn't any reason to prohibit us from giving parents a choice of doing, say, full instruction or at home. I'm basing this on the data that we received from the preliminary surveys data. And I mean, nothing is to prevent us from doing that, saying you'll have a choice. You can either, but like I understand, Dr. Brick, you have to, make them commit to a certain time period, because otherwise it'd be quite chaotic. Like for a full trimester, and then work within those parameters. But they're, that seems to suit the needs of the community.
You are correct. There's nothing that prevents us from offering multiple models. I will say that offering all 3 models would be I don't know if we would be serving our community well with that process, but I think offering 2 out of 3 with 100% remote being one of those 2, I think, and then kind of figuring out what the second one would be, I think is fair.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I don't see how we do 100% remote and hybrid. I don't know how we do 100% in person and hybrid. I think hybrid is its own thing, and if that's it, everybody has to do it. For the most part, I think it's either, giving a choice between 100% in school or 100% remote, and letting families make those decisions.
Yeah, the hybrid is definitely is the most limiting of any of them, and if you're going to, it can't be one of the choices, just because of it just can't be. So if you are going to go with choice, it would definitely be choosing 100% remote, 100% in person. And this also will give parents flexibility if they see it. I mean, I know there's a lot of working parents out there, and and they've had tough times. It would give them a choice of what they think would work for their family. And if people don't want to wear masks, that would give them that choice then to have something like that. But masks are mandatory. That's all I'm going to say. Masks are mandatory. So that's something that we cannot judge on no matter what we choose.
Mrs. Nichols, since you brought over this form, the in-person instruction, I just got a message sent to me. During PE, would a mask be required?
It's not required if you're outside and you're able to space 6 feet apart, but I believe it is required indoor.
Let me address that very quickly. I'm a coach in high school, and just 3 days ago they made a decision, 4 days ago they made a decision that any indoor camps of sports, you have to be in a mask. So I can't see how that can change for PE during the year.
Well, you did mention it in the questions. If Mr. Brick is accurate, if you're indoors, you have to wear a mask.
Yeah,
outside and practice social distancing, you're fine without it outside. But
I have a question about mask breaks, because one of the biggest questions is about the mask and how long a child might be in one. We had some questions about that and comments. Obviously, an intelligent teacher, smart teacher in school would give definitely periodic mask breaks from the mask as long as they're socially distanced. I think that's one way to look at it and would take away that fear. But that's my own personal opinion.
We have met with the K-5 principals multiple times and the junior high principals as well, and they have consistently put breaks into the schedules, so you would not have one teacher doing it and another teacher not.
Okay, thanks.
You know, one parent letter that we did get gave a really good suggestion for parents at home. That is, if you plan on sending your child to school, and they've never worn a mask, start breaking them in so that they can have some experience with wearing a mask where they won't go from never wearing one to 5 hours wearing one. That's going to be hard, but do it, in increments and increase the longevity of the wearing mask. It'll make it easier for the teachers at school and the staff at school and the children at school. So, all right, that's it for me.
Well, the other thing about the mask breaks is, Ted talked about the event tents that we are looking to put up, at least probably 2 or 3, if I'm not wrong, at each school. Gives us outdoor space for outdoor classes, lunch, etc. when the weather cooperates. And, if it's raining, they can still be out there. If it's thundering and lightning, obviously they can't be. But it actually, adds to our flexibility as well for those mask breaks.
Well, we could even have lunch out there, couldn't we?
Absolutely, yes.
That was a great idea, Linda, by the way. I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's costs money, but it's worth it. So
once again, with something like that, though, with the tent, whatever, if you're out, there has to be coordination, obviously, and there has to be sign up. Those places probably have to be signed up, like you'll sign up for the learning center time. You have to sign up for it so you do not have interaction among more than one class out there at one time. So,
yeah. Okay. Well, can we have? I think we need to have some discussion on this. I'd like to hear from everybody on their thoughts on this. I'll go first if you like. I think doing the full attendance 5 days a week and the remote learning as 2 options for people to choose appeals to me greatly. I listening to what parents have to say. I've seen a lot of comments, not just here, but on Facebook and other outlets. And you have people who don't want their kids to wear a mask. You have people who want their kids to go back to school full time. You have people who are scared of COVID, and that's, I'm scared of COVID, so that don't want to send their kids to school no matter what until something breaks. And I think this offers everyone a choice. And looking at the numbers from the survey, it seems like it will also allow us to have a little more social distancing in the schools if the numbers hold and 30% of the families keep their kids at home.
Yeah.
So I know it's a lot of work on our teaching and learning and our teachers and everybody else. And you guys have done fabulous job planning for this so far. What does everybody else think about that?
I'll go next. I definitely have an opinion on this as a former teacher of 34 years. Sandy, we have former teacher Laura on this board. I think I think it's important to give parents choice. I really do. I don't want to lock them into one thing or the other. It needs to be their choice that they make for their children, and the full in-person and then the full remote are the 2 choices I think that we should consider. COVID does not take pick days. Okay, it's there. Okay, so I'm there Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever. The blend is a good idea initially, but once again, I don't think it gives us what we need to have. And I know some districts are going that way, so it'd be great to see how they work. But I don't think we should be in that position to do that. And this does kind of go with our initial surveys that we give people choice. And remember, both models have consistency. They have consistent curriculum. And I think that's what parents really had trouble with when we did in the springtime, was the consistency that we had to deal with and that they had to deal with, and the uncertainty of what each day was going to hold for them. So parents also need to have some kind of certainty out there.
Okay. I do think that like you said, Mr. Marotte, that consistency with the delivery and how things are going makes a big difference for children. For a young child to go to school for 2 days a week, then off one, then not going. I just don't think. I think that's more a high school model. That's my own personal opinion. I do think that the choices of either letting them go 100% in line, or give people the option of keeping their children at home and supporting them. And I would like to thank the teaching and learning department, because they put a lot of thought into this, and how is it going to work, and what are they going to, how can they provide the best example. And I love the idea of the consistency in the curriculum. This way, when all of this does get resolved, we're shooting towards putting everybody on the same page curriculum wise, which will only benefit our students. And I know a lot of people are concerned about how much their child has lost over the last 6 months. And yes, it's a fact of life, and it's happened. But if you look at it from a perspective that we're all here at the same point at the same time, we'll just have to make incremental growth as we go on, and hopefully life will get back to somewhat of a normal situation. But I do believe that, based on the information that we have from both the teachers and from the parents about that 70-30 split, it appears that 70% of the people want to send their children to school every day, and 30% of the parents want to keep their children safe at home. Let's give them that choice. I think that's a wise decision.
Thank you. Who's next? Tara?
Tara, go ahead.
Tara?
I will. I think the unknowns need to be answered before we can make a decision. All these parents keep asking about what about this and what about this, and nobody's really giving any answers. What happens if a teacher tests positive? Does her whole class stay home? That's never been answered. What happens if a kid in a class tests positive and he's got siblings in other schools? Does then that other classroom have to stay home? We're not we're skimming such the top that we're not answering these questions. Also, if a teacher doesn't want to come to school, then that paid time off, or is it are they forced to come? If they're forced to come and they get tested positive, is that legal ramifications? None of this is being discussed. I will tell you, I think staying home has taken a toll on my son and his mental well-being. He's an only child and he is going absolutely bananas. Like I said before, I think the e-learning, he gained nothing from it other than being able to see his classmates for 20 minutes, 2 days a week. Will e-learning continue for the entire year? If we get to November and the cases in Illinois have fallen to next to nothing, are we going to still continue to let these kids who chose remote learning stay on remote learning till the end of the year? And if not, when they come back, they're going to undoubtedly be behind the children who opted to come into school and get that in-classroom experience. So how are we going to accommodate those kids who were learning from home, being given assignments on Zoom? There was, one of the comments today was just talking about she had mentioned she was an opinionated person, but she literally cannot decide where she's at. And that is how I feel. I feel like everybody's asking questions and none of them are getting answered. And we can't make a decision until these are answered. And I know that this is very fluid and, things might change next week and, we're all on lockdown again. So in class isn't even an option, or, I know everything's changing literally by the day. So if I had to make a decision today, I don't think I could, because I don't have any answers as far as the things I just talked about. So, and obviously we all know that if we choose one, there's going to be half the parents that are upset. If we choose the other half is going to be upset. There's literally a no-win situation right now. I don't know. It's a tough one. So that's my 2 cents on
You're
this.
right. And but Dr. Brick, Mr. Brick, can I refer to you? Have you thought, obviously, sorry, I promoted you. Obviously, but obviously you have probably these questions that are coming out that Ms. Schneider is asking. I mean, you guys have obviously talked about some of this stuff. You just haven't made it public.
Yeah, no, we have. So, we intend to follow all the guidelines. Every situation is not going to be the same. I think we're pretty safe to say. So, just the scenario that you described, if a teacher tests positive, so according to the guidelines of consistent face-to-face within 6 feet, and all those things, the likelihood of that class being potentially quarantine and moving to remote learning is of course an option. So when you get to a school situation, there obviously has to be a lot more going on than a teacher, but a lot of it focuses on time and distance, with those that are around that teacher. And I've gotten, and as many as my colleagues here on this Zoom and those that are watching, there are probably literally hundreds of scenarios, and we're not going to be able to answer them all, but I will tell you, we're going to follow, all the state and CDC guidelines when it comes to, what the process is and looking at a situation. Can I say for sure if a teacher tests positive, is the whole school going to go on quarantine or the whole class? I can't tell you positively yes or no. We have to look at every situation independently. Are we going to err on the side of safety every time? I would say yes, but I think without, giving you, like I said, we can go down the list of hundreds of scenarios, and I know that our Director of Human Resources is looking into situations with staff, what we cannot do, and following those guidelines with FMLA and COVID type situations. So. To be honest with you, I can't sit here and answer every scenario because every scenario is going to be different. But I will tell you, we're going to err on the side of caution when it comes to these things. If the teacher is well and just has tested positive but is not showing any signs, the likelihood of that class going into remote learning until the teacher returns is definitely a possibility. And vice versa, if a student is in that situation with their class. So it's, for me to tell you definitively every single thing would be difficult for me, but hopefully at least give you a bit of a guideline on how we're going to go about the process.
Well, and I think the rigor of the e-learning now that Dr. Zeter talked about is going to help mitigate some of the lags between the kids that go to school full-time and the kids who do e-learning. I mean, you're doing the curriculum. You're making sure everybody's teaching the same thing at the same time across all the grades. So I believe that that'll help mitigate catching up or not if you come from e-learning into the schools. Also, I think the biggest thing that's going to happen is people are going to go from full-time to e-learning. I mean, if anything happens here, I think we're going to go backwards. That's a possibility. And then everybody moves into e-learning. I know this is really hard, and I know everyone's uncertain and there's a lot of uncertainties. We have to move forward. We do not have a choice. School starts on August 26th. So we have to, do the best that we can given the circumstances. That said, Lori, do you want to chime in?
Sure. I have really benefited from listening to all of the conversation, and there are more questions that we have answers for. This is unprecedented time. We have to move forward. Like you just said, Linda, school starts, and the sooner we make at least a tentative decision on which way our district needs to go, the better prepared they will be, so that you don't have 3 days and you're going to remote learning. So part of the March issue was that there wasn't enough time teaching and learning has worked all summer on getting teachers ready for remote learning and how to benefit and to get better at it and to be prepared. I like what I hear about the curriculum being standardized, because that was, but the sequencing is going to be standardized so that if we had to go back to a 100% remote situation, we'd be ready for it. But in my opinion, at this point, I think giving parents the option of either 100% e-learning or 100% in school would be our best options. As I think Mike said, I think remote learning as presented would be extremely confusing and difficult for parents and students and teachers. So my opinion would be giving parents the options of either the remote learning or in-person learning, but then let them re-decide at the trimester.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Well, I think that all of us know that we're making probably the most important decision today that we've had to make as board members, and everyone's taking this very, very serious. I know there's been tons of communication behind the scenes. I've personally spoken to or emailed or texted at least 3 dozen people, maybe 4 dozen people over the last couple of weeks, and everyone seems to have a slightly different opinion. I would say that, somebody alluded to earlier in the comments that, begging us to really make sure that we make a decision that is the best for our children. Let me tell you, I'm a parent of 3 in the district. And many of us had children in the district, if not, I think all of us at some point. And, my wife and I have to make that decision too, right? We have concerns on how this model plays out. I think that the better of the options currently reside with full-time. I go back to the data, right? I'm a data guy, and I think that our parents and our families have spoken. And 67% of our families said that they felt comfortable with their children going back to school with masks. And I think that we have to provide an option for those families that feel that way. 32.5% of our families felt that they did not feel comfortable sending their children back to school, and that the concerns that I had and that many had from e-learning on how it was in the past. And look, let's be fair to teaching and learning as well, right? That was a very short time to be able to put something together. It was unprecedented. And it was also, e-learning at that time was more based on snow days, not a full blast curriculum. And I think I have full confidence that teaching and learning as a team, along with teachers have done, and administrators have really, really tried to do an exceptional job of laying out and presenting a plan that's going to keep our, look, everybody that I speak to says the same thing. They want, in this particular category, they want accountability from e-learning, so they feel that if their children are home, that there is a good structure, and that they're learning and they're progressing and that they're not falling behind. I talk to people that are going into 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, and I've got kids at every level. And they're concerned, and I'm concerned, and my wife's concerned, and all of our parents that I speak to are concerned that they don't fall behind. I feel with what was laid out today, as Dr. Berry mentioned very eloquently, that and the standardization of everything being across the board makes me feel very comfortable that e-learning will be significantly better, if not, going from a 1 or 2 to an 8 or 9 or 10 model, hopefully very, very soon. And I think that the follow-up questions that Ms. Schreiber has, look, there are so many questions. And I think that what we have to do in our future surveys, it sounds like the consensus of the board here is to move forward with 2 models, which allow parents to stay home with their children and or go to school full time. I think now the important part that I want to emphasize is that the survey or potential 2 surveys have a lot of detailed questions that get answered so that the people can make the most informed decision possible on moving forward, even with the data that we currently have. So I would support my colleagues in providing 2 options with full learning or e-learning, full e-learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we do have a special board meeting scheduled for July 23rd. If we would like to, we could give the direction to teaching, learning, and administration that those are the 2 options. Let's flesh them out in more detail and re-present them to us at that meeting, try to answer some of these questions that have come up from parents, from the board, and, and then adopt the plan at that point. We could also maybe get a survey in the field.
Yeah.
John, do you think that would be possible?
Sure, it would be possible. We don't have that meeting scheduled yet on the calendar, but I know that's something that we worked on. But yeah, we can definitely put something together and have a 7-day turnaround and have that ready. If we can have that survey out going from Wednesday to Wednesday, we would have results for that meeting on potentially on the 23rd on Thursday.
Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that one thing that came up a few times, that I'm really trying to help the parents and everybody, so I'm trying to ask as many questions as possible for them, that, why didn't the Board of Education meet in person if it's good enough for our children to be back in school in person? And I think, Linda, was it Pritzker's rule that doesn't allow us to until July 26th?
No, we're allowed to, but we have the right to meet this way until July 26th. And my point back with that, when I heard that myself, was teachers have not been in the classrooms. We are doing summer school remote. I see no reason for us to, make ourselves meet because we're making a decision that's going to happen in August. We are going to be meeting in person in August. Our August meeting, unless Pritzker's executive order gets extended, and even if it does, we have every right to meet in public. So at this point, our plan is to meet as a board on August 13th at Century Junior High. Socially distanced and only 50 people in the gym, that kind of thing. And we will do that then. I don't see any need to put people who feel uncomfortable, and I know there's people on the board that do, and make them come in, because I was afraid we also wouldn't have a quorum. If we have to have the quorum present in the meeting, if we have it in person, you can call in and that's allowed, but the quorum has to be present. So
I would say then, since you directed the question back to me, I think it's we should meet again, and I think that the more that we meet specifically within this time frame, and the more information that we can get out to parents, the more comfortable they're going to feel to make the most informed decision that they need for their children and for their families. So I'd advocate for I wouldn't use it a rigorous, but a very thorough survey that would get us to the exact points that we need to get to, and that we hope to meet on the 23rd. I think that was, yes, which is about 10 days from now. I think that allows us to get more data and feedback. So I would be in favor of that. This is what I call a crisis, that we need to do as much as possible throughout this period. So if we got to meet 2 more times, I'm happy to do that. And I think I'm sure
right.
that.
Mike?
Yeah, I was just looking at the motion in the regular meeting that we had and how that would be changed. If
we wouldn't have.
It looks like a resolution.
We wouldn't do it.
We would not do it at all.
Not do it.
Okay.
We would hold off on that until we decide that, yes, this is a definite, after seeing more detail, more questions answered. I mean, I know there's, all sorts of questions. I keep getting things flashing on my phone. People ask me questions. I can't look at them. I can't answer them right now. I can certainly forward them. Will. So that's, I hate to box us in.
So this would definitely be something we would probably come to a decision about on the 23rd, though. So we
yes,
left.
Could, set another special meeting, in August. We
so
could do that.
Will we this motion, we won't handle it, or will we does somebody have to make a motion to table it?
No, neither.
You could just, Mike, someone would just move to table it.
I'll move the table.
That's what the board wants to do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great.
Also, just a reminder too, I know that a lot of the parents' questions parents that I've talked to, the answers are, on the latest update from the Illinois State Board of Education. So we'll have that posted on our website. The one I have is July 9th. They'll probably update it again. So if we could have that on our district website, because it addresses are they required face masks? Can we do this? What do you do if there's this? A lot of the questions, Tara, that you asked are answered in this document by the Illinois State Board of Education. It might make you feel better to read it if you make sure she gets it. So Thank you so much.
Anybody else want to chime in on that suggestion? Okay. So I think that's what we'll do. Great. Anything else from anybody on this conversation?
So I just wanted to touch on our building rentals.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So, as the state has suggested to limit those outside type groups. So I just wanted to get a feel for, what your thoughts are on that. I mean, I think us as a group, as an administrative team, we would, not that you're asking, but I'm offering a recommendation would be to suspend those rentals, just because there's a lot going on with those as far as control of where kids go, where adults go during the building, and it would just put increase the burden of the cleaning staff on a day-to-day basis to clean those areas before that group comes in. After, while there's going to be enhanced cleaning throughout the district on a daily and nightly basis. So it just presents a huge challenge. But if that's something you wanted to do, we would make it happen.
Rick, do you see this something for the whole entire school year, or do you see it as potentially changing during the school year, the use of our facilities? Because if I'm a group that uses it, like an OYA or whatever, I'd like to know how I need to plan.
I mean, I think that we have to take the same approach as we would for our extracurriculars and athletics, and take it season by season, and seeing what it takes us from month to month or week to week, whatever the situation is. But I mean, I don't know. I don't see the arrow going down on this moving forward, but we can look at it on a month-to-month basis and see where we're at. But again, it would put definitely extra pressures on our building grounds staff, opening up all our buildings. And if we wanted to narrow it to certain buildings, I suppose that would be a possible option. But
I don't see how you can. Our buildings need to be clean.
I think your recommendation is logical and you make complete sense. I agree with you. So,
yeah,
our buildings need to be cleaned.
Okay, and we'll look at extracurriculars as well. I know that we've had I've had some conversations with my colleagues and counterparts in other districts, so we'll look at that. We'll probably have a better handle on that at our next board meeting, whether it be the special one or the regular one, to see where we're at with our extracurricular activities at that point. Any after-school activity, athletics, clubs. I mean, clubs we could still have clubs remotely if that club lends it to it. So we'll do our best with those kinds of things.
How about after school, what do we call it?
Athletics?
No, the sitting, or childcare.
Daycare.
Yep, we plan to offer that. Obviously, there'll be limits with that. We'll have to follow those guidelines, but I don't think we had a building that had over 50 kids in daycare anyway.
50?
Pardon me?
50, you said?
50, right. I don't think we had over 50. I know Centennial had probably the largest group from what I recall, and they were in the 40s. So I think probably with the remote option being presented, I don't think that 50 limit's going to be a factor for us. And we could have multiple spaces if necessary.
Does everyone probably knows that the village has stopped doing their PALS program in the fall?
They did. We had a meeting with the village on that, and they're just basically directing their customers to us.
So how many is that? I'm just curious.
Ted, do you remember how many they talked about?
They had about 80 students using the program. Was the number that they gave us.
Thank you.
So we may need those extra rooms, depending. Okay.
And remember, they're going to have to be masked, right?
Yes.
It's a program, and so that's required.
Yes.
Okay. Are we ready for we have a regular meeting still, correct?
Add.
Are we ready for a motion for adjournment?
I will move that the Board of Education adjourn the July 13th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we just continuing with this Zoom? Are we coming back and forth going
All right, we're live.
Hi, everyone. We're back. Thank you for waiting. I'm going to open up the Board of Education or Orland School District 135 regular meeting for Monday, July 13th, 2020 at 7 p.m. It's really now 8:30. We'll have a roll call, please, Jill.
Dr. Berry.
Here.
Mr. Hodge. Ms. Kulak.
Here.
Mr. Merite.
Here.
Ms. Peckham Dodge.
Here.
Ms. Schreiber.
Here.
Mr. Shalaby.
Here.
Okay, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Recognitions, Mr. Merite.
Okay, here we go. Our first recognition that I'd like to present are Swick Recognitions. Special congratulations to Century Junior High 8th grade girls volleyball team, along with coaches Morgan Bianchi and Rob Dominguez, for coming in first place in their conference this year. Our second recognition is also a Swick Award. It says children may be nominated by a Swick Award provided they have participated in a Swick sponsored event during their 8th grade year. Swick sponsored events include the Swick Art Show, any of the Swick Band, Orchestra, and Choir events, Declamation, all Swick sports, etc. Citizenship, leadership, and academics are the driver for this award. They are nominated by their coaches/sponsors. Congratulations to the following recipients of the Swick Award: Century Junior High, Luke Brannigan and Karina May. Sterling Junior High, Grant Giblin and Ava Giblin. Orland Junior High, Connor Begley and Elise Sterling. Congratulations to all. And that's all I have.
That's it. Thank you. We read all our citizens' remarks at the beginning of the CAL, correct, John?
Correct.
Okay. So we're going to move on to board reports. We're going to do updates on some of our committees. We'll start with the Policy and Personnel Advisory Committee, who met on June 24th.
Okay. Yes, we had a brief meeting on the 24th. We went over, Ms. Owens briefed us on the HR hiring report and some, our hiring procedures are very good. They're very tight, but there were some recommendations for some additional ways that we could tighten the hiring process. And so those will be put into place. We are waiting to discuss the special education evaluation due to the everybody's focus on COVID. So we kind of pushed that aside till the next time we meet, because COVID has been, what we're really focusing on. And we very touched briefly on the instructional technology evaluation and talked a little bit about that. But once again, we're really focused on, what's happening and starting with school and letting people do their work, getting ready for that. And that's about what we went over. Suzanne, if you wanted to add anything, that would be great, but I think I covered everything.
Nope, I think that sums it up, Dr. Berry. Nope, that's fine.
Okay. Any questions for policy personnel? Okay, next update is the June 25th Teaching and Learning Advisory Committee.
We met on Thursday, June 25th. We had some parent concerns. Let me make sure I'm not mute. Okay. Parent concerns, some of the same concerns that were addressed at the committee of the whole regarding, the e-learning and the school opening. And some of the comments were made about children being extremely efficient vectors for respiratory viruses. While they appear to suffer less from COVID-19, they're not immune from serious side effects. So there's general concern about the reopening of schools in general. And we had several parents text us or email us. The second thing, in the committee discussions, we talked about the Dr. Snyder talked about February's teaching and learning regarding discovery education, and that it didn't happen on a full scale, and that they will be using it. All teachers have access to it at the junior high 2021 school year as a resource. There's up to the minute news on the website. Anything else, Dr. Snyder, or that pretty much it?
We did make some movement on delaying our discussion on specials.
Yes, I was getting to that.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, I wasn't done yet. I was just asking.
Whoops.
That's okay.
Both cut off Dr. Snyder. Dave, go for it.
Dr. Snyder wasn't saying anything.
So we have to submit the remote learning plan by September 1st. And the teaching and learning committees are working on updating all of those things. The e-learning committee met, and we had an update from them. Let's see. Any other discussion? We did table, like Mr. Merite said, the discussion on junior high specials until the 2021-22 school year. And we talked about the daycare center, concerns about increased parent drop-off and pickup, which is something we need to talk about too. Are we going to stagger the transportation if more people are driving their children to school? It's going to create havoc, especially in certain parts of Orland Park where it's tough enough. So maybe we need to discuss in that next board meeting staggering transportation drop-offs and things. And there's Dr. Snyder also talked about there's an uncertainty with regards to MAP testing for the fall. The primary grades are implementing a new phonics study in grades kindergarten and first. And our next Teaching and Learning Advisory Committee will be held virtually on Wednesday, August 5th at 6 p.m. Mr. Merite, anything else?
No, you covered it greatly. Sorry I jumped in like that.
It's okay.
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Linda.
No, Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that I'm glad you brought up this point. We should not, I believe that we should not be having school end the same exact time, especially if we're going to be increasing the buses. I'm sorry, the student pickups.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously, like if you're at Meadow Ridge and Century, okay, but like in my case, if you're at Centennial and Meadow Ridge, it's probably a little bit more difficult. So we should probably have maybe a 5 to 15 minute increment on when schools get out. I know that's tough, but especially if our student pickup is going to be significantly rising.
Absolutely. That was a big concern for some parents who have kids just like you at Centennial and Meadow Ridge, especially they start at the same time. So I think that should be part of our conversation on the 23rd. John, is that okay?
Yes, we'll have some options for that.
Okay, super.
And Mrs. Kulak, I know with the committee, we had talked about the date that we had to submit that plan. We were on webinars today, and there's some flexibility with that because what we did was temporary with putting in for the COVID plan, but we have some flexibility for putting it in, which would now be in place of a snow day. So we're not as constrained by that September 1st day as originally thought when we met on our T&L advisory committee.
Great. Anything else for that committee? Okay, the last was the Finance and Operations Advisory Committee meeting on the 7th of July. We almost covered all of that in the cow tonight. We talked about buses, we talked about food service, we talked about building and grounds and everything in the buildings to make them safe. We also covered the insurance audit. John, can you chime in on that? I really don't have any notes on that.
That's just an audit that we're conducting internally as far as our staff and dependents being eligible to be on our plan. So it's just more of a checks and balances to make sure that everybody that's on our plan is supposed to be on our plan. So that's what that audit is. It's just verifying dependents.
Great. And then we also talked about our initial budget financial outlook for this year, I'm assuming that was. And it's obviously we're going to be in the red more than we thought. We have a lot of expenses that we're incurring that we didn't know we were going to have with the epidemic, and it's just things that we have to do. So, we'll have a better look at that number at our next finance meeting and report back to the board in August on that. We also talked about fees for school, and there have been some concerns that, folks are having a tough time during this time period that normally do not have a tough time. And the free and reduced lunch program application process, they might not meet those thresholds, but they still may need help. So I think we're going to have some more conversations about that as a finance committee and hash it out more at the next finance committee meeting, because I think we need to have something in the plans. I don't know what everybody else thinks about that, but I just think, some of our families may need help that normally don't and wouldn't meet those guidelines. So any questions on that? All right, with that, move on to the superintendent's report.
Before I get into the superintendent's report, I just wanted to make mention of the 3 graduations that we had for our 3 junior highs that happened right after our last board meeting. So I will tell you that they definitely exceeded my expectations. I know as a group, we planned it district-wide with the buildings, staff, and when that whole process came together, it was quite an event to recognize families and students for their accomplishment. And I want to thank all the staffs at all 3 junior highs, the district office, the tech department, the building and grounds department. Everything went extremely well. I know that those graduation videos are on YouTube, and I think families have gotten their pictures already. So it went really, really well, and it was a nice moment for the district during a difficult time we just came off of.
It was fabulous. I went to all 3, and the families couldn't have been happier. The kids, it really did go very well. So thank you.
And I know it was briefly talked about at the COW, but our 6-week e-learning plan is posted on our website. So anybody that any family, district or not, has access to it, and it's on a week-to-week basis. So feel free to check that out if you want your child to have a little extra academic stimulation during the next 6 weeks. And also just a reminder that our food service program for those families that have requested it is continuing and is going to continue throughout the summer up until I think the week before school starts. So there has been quite a few families that have benefited from that. So we'd like to thank the board for offering that to our families, and Quest staff for making that happen, as well as building staff. So with that, I will jump into our first item is the 2021 budget timeline. So the August board meeting will present a tentative budget, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It'll be something that we'll publish. We have to put in ad in the paper, be on public display on our website and at the district for 30 days. And we'll set our public hearing for September 14th board meeting. So we'll have a lot better idea on where we stand in August as far as kind of our revenue and expenses, what they'll look like. FY21 interim payments, this is something that we started last year. It's just the board authorizing us to keep making payments until the budget is approved in August, or in September, I should say, just for regular business. That's that will be a yearly item. National Night Out has been rescheduled till August 6th. So National Night Out is just it's a community event, a partnership event with the police department that's normally held in the first week of August, but I don't know how what's going to look like in October, but that's what they moved that National Night Out to. Authorization for bank account signers. This is something we do on a yearly basis as administration changes within our district. So that's just a yearly update of authorizing bank signers. And you'll see that on a for approval this board meeting as well. Same thing with the hazardous conditions for bus routes. So this is something that we review every year. So this is a formality. We do not have any new hazardous bus routes to add this year. So the plan has been reviewed by Mr. Hughes, and that's just something that we annually have to approve. August 10th board meeting. So as Linda mentioned at our committee of the whole, it's going to be scheduled at Century Junior High, and we're going to continue to rotate our board meetings at our junior highs so we can use the largest possible venue or gymnasium to spread out and have to be able to have 50 people comfortably in the board meeting. So barring any changes with the governor's executive order, that's where our next board meeting will be at Century Junior High on August 10th.
We talked about if, more than, and it wouldn't be 50 people allowed in from the public because you have to count us and the administrative staff and, anybody else from the schools that is there. We could have a separate area set up for people who want to make comments to wait in, socially distant line to come in, or we could continue to do mailed comments, correct, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Either one, I think, would be an option we could provide.
And we will still obviously consider continue to stream the meetings, even if they're live. In person. So, okay.
We've been doing that for well over a year now, so that will definitely continue. Also, our reopening plan. So are we setting that meeting for July 23rd at 6 p.m.? Okay. And that will be a virtual meeting as well.
Yes.
So we'll provide a more detailed plan with the direction that we received and addressing the various questions that we also received and have been receiving from the community as well. We had one FOIA request and it was fulfilled.
All right. I do have to say that John started his official tenure as our official superintendent on July 1st. So welcome aboard, John. We're very glad to have you. That's for sure. Do you feel any different?
Nothing different.
He doesn't seem different.
Just on the second floor now, that's all. So.
Are you on the second floor?
Pardon me?
Officially there?
I am right now in the office, yes. You can see that decor behind me.
All right.
You need some pictures, John.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Looks Army gray to me.
It is.
It is.
All right. So we'll move on to review of revised board policy second reading.
Mrs. Owens will take us from here if there's any questions.
So these are a presentation of the revised policies that were presented at last meeting under first read. So they're being represented. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. The first items here in area 4, these are all revised policies. And then for 2, these were a second reading for policy 5-year review, which had no changes.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on either item 4 or 5, policies for 5-year review?
Just policy 7-325. Student fundraising activities. What's changed, Mrs. Owens? Anything?
Said nothing.
Mr. Shalaby, nothing changed on this. This was a 5-year review. No problem.
Okay. All right. With that, we will move on to the consent agenda. I move that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda items. Minutes, June 8th, 2020, regular Board of Education meeting. Minutes, June 8th, 2020, closed session. Accounts payable, June 30th, 2020, $977,587.79. Petty cash interest fund, June 30th, 2020, $7,780.35. Payroll summary, June 30th, 2020, $7,967,243.75. Personnel report as presented. Is that it? Oh, no. Resolution stating that hazardous conditions exist for student transportation.
I second.
Anyone have any items to remove or comments? Okay, Jill, call the roll, please.
Dr. Berry,
Aye.
Ms. Kulak. Ms. Kulak?
Unmute.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Merite,
Aye.
Ms. Peckham Dodge,
Aye.
Ms. Schreiber,
Aye.
Mr. Shalaby.
Aye.
All right, we will move to board motions. Approval interim payments.
I move that the Board of Education approve Orland School District's expenditure of funds to defray necessary and proper expenses and liabilities of the school district incurred for educational or operations or maintenance or transportation or site and construction purposes of the district for the fiscal year 2021 until which time the annual budget of the district is adopted in conformity with the applicable sections of the Illinois School Code.
I second it.
Any discussion? Jill, call the roll, please.
Ms. Kulak,
Aye.
Mr. Merite,
Aye.
Ms. Peckham Dodge,
Aye.
Ms. Schreiber,
Aye.
Mr. Shalaby,
Aye.
Dr. Berry.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 6-0. B, approval of new revised board policy.
I move that the Board of Education approve the following new and revised policy. Policy 6:135, Accelerated Placement Program. Policy 6:280, Grading and Promotion. Policy 7:70, Attendance and Truancy. Policy 8:10, Connection with the Community. Policy 8:30, Visitors to and Conduct on School Property. Policy 8:110, Public Suggestions and Concerns, and to re-adopt the following policies as per the board's 5-year review. Policy 4:50, Payment Procedures. Policy 7:130, Student Rights and Responsibilities. Policy 7:325, Student Fundraising Activities. Policy 8:80, Gifts to the District.
Second.
Any discussion? Jill, call the roll, please.
Ms. Kulak,
Aye.
Mr. Merite,
Aye.
Ms. Peckham Dodge,
Aye.
Ms. Schreiber,
Aye.
Mr. Shalaby,
Aye.
Dr. Berry.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Authorization for bank account signers.
I move that the Board of Education approve a resolution for bank account signers effective July 1st, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Jill, call the roll, please.
Mr. Merite,
Aye.
Ms. Peckham Dodge,
Aye.
Ms. Schreiber,
Aye.
Mr. Shalaby,
Aye.
Dr. Berry,
Aye.
Ms. Kulak.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Financial depositories resolution.
I move that the Board of Education approve a resolution designating authorized school district depositories effective July 13th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Any comments? Call the roll, please, Jill.
Ms. Peckham Dodge,
Aye.
Ms. Schreiber,
Aye.
Mr. Shalaby,
Aye.
Dr. Berry,
Aye.
Ms. Kulak,
Aye.
Mr. Merite.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Employment administrative staff.
Oh, this is exciting. I move that the Board of Education employ Cedric Hunter Jr. as Assistant Principal of Orland Junior High School at an annual salary of $81,687 effective July 1st, 2020.
I second.
Any discussion? Jill, call the roll, please.
Ms. Schreiber,
Aye.
Mr. Shalaby,
Aye.
Dr. Berry,
Aye.
Ms. Kulak,
Aye.
Mr. Merite,
Aye.
Ms. Peckham Dodge.
Aye.
Madam
John,
President,
So we have Mrs. Bushwaller on our Zoom here, as well as our new assistant principal, Cedric. So Lauren's got a few words to say about Cedric. Hopefully they're good.
Well, hi, everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So, thank you to Mr. Brick, Ms. Dodge, and the whole board and district office, both for their guidance through this process. It was new to me, hiring an assistant principal, but I want to thank everyone for further help. And I truly believe that we got the best candidate to help us continue to lead Orland Junior High. So just a brief, Cedric gave me a brief bio, and then I'll finally let him talk. He has spent the last 10 years in education, 8 of them in the Inglewood neighborhood as a teacher, a dean, a department chair, a coach, and a mentor. He's a graduate of Bowling Green State University. He has a master's in education from DePaul. And his most recent educational ventures are an ed leadership degree from Lehigh University in Pennsylvania and a fellowship with the Surge Institute in Chicago. I want to formally welcome Cedric to the Orland Junior High family and look forward to the leadership that he's going to provide for our staff, our students, our parents, and continue to move us forward during this time. So welcome, Cedric.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank you.
Cedric.
I appreciate that. I do want to say, first off, thanks for the introduction. Thank you to all of you, Ms. Bushwaller, Mr. Brick, board president, Peckham Dodge, and the entire board, I should say. I'm both humbled and excited for the opportunity to serve the students and the community of Orland Junior High. I've been listening to the call. I know this is very unique times, and I look forward to the challenge, but I also look forward to connecting with each of you as we ensure that all of our students continue to receive that high quality education that they deserve. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Madam President, if I may have 38 seconds.
Oh, you may. Go for it.
Mr. Hunter, no pressure here, but former Orland Junior High student speaking with you, Dr. Berry, former Orland Junior High educator, Ms. Sandy, Mrs. Kulak, correct, Orland Junior High, Dr. Lynn Zeter, former Orland Junior High educator. A lot of pressure on you, man. I'm not going to lie to you.
I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Orland alum in some way or another, so we expect great things. Mrs. Bushwaller, we couldn't have asked for a better principal leading Orland Junior High, and we're great. Congratulations, man. Welcome to the team.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
We'll see you at 6 a.m. tomorrow, Cedric.
All right.
All right. Next is approval of administrative and at-will salaries for fiscal year 2020. I move that the Board of Education approve the administrative and at-will salaries for fiscal year 2021. Oops, did I say 2020? I meant 2021, as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Jill, call the roll, please. Jill.
Sorry. Mr. Shalaby?
Aye.
Dr. Berry?
Aye.
Ms. Kulak?
Aye.
Mr. Barate?
Aye.
Ms. Peckham Dodge?
Aye.
Ms. Schreiber?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Approval of reopening plan for the 2020-2021 school year.
I move to table that motion until the special board meeting on July 23rd.
I second that.
Any discussion? Jill, call the roll, please.
Dr. Berry?
Aye.
Ms. Kulak?
Aye.
Mr. Marate?
Aye.
Ms. Peckham Dodge?
Aye.
Ms. Schreiber?
Aye.
Mr. Shalaby?
Aye.
All right. Any board member reports and requests? No. If I'm not mistaken, we do not have a closed session, John?
We do not have one scheduled, no.
So I was looking for a motion to adjourn.
Well, I guess that's up to me. Okay. Well, no, it isn't. I'll do it anyway.
Oops, sorry. I move that the Board of Education adjourn the July 13th, 2020 regular meeting.
Second, I don't care who is supposed to do it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.